I can tell you how these products were developed, and you would kind of have to maybe someone who is interested in formalizing methods like this. I'm not one of those people who's just like, you sit down and write the code and it's done. Like, I appreciate the fact that like there are coordination issues and there's team scaling issues and all that sort of stuff. So I'm not like one of these people who's just, you just write the code. But I'm not really capable of mapping it onto a bigger organizational structure with all of the sort of things you would have to assume, like some of the programmers suck and some of the managers are idiots and like all the things that actually happen where it's like, this method can't just be about great people getting work done, because that's not what the reality is at a Fortune 500 company or whatever, right? So I'll let that to other people, and I'll just kind of tell you roughly this is how it works. So one of the nice things with something like RAD is Jeff really knows what he's doing. And he kind of has an intuitive sense for these things in a way that probably makes certain aspects of formalistic management less important for if you have sort of relatively high productivity programmers who are taking direction from him. So when I first got to RAD, he gave me the very best direction you could possibly give someone at the time, which was, I don't really care what you give me, just give me something by the end of the year that's this product. Right?
Okay, that's a longer term.
He was just like, just do something, and then we'll revisit it from there, right? And this is a brilliant idea because it's like, look, if he told me like, customers have to be able to do this and worry about that and make sure you do that, right? It's like he knew that like we didn't have enough experience with this product, and I don't have any experience shipping libraries because I've never done it before. He just kind of knew it's like, don't try. Like we don't need this thing to be successful right out of the gate. We got plenty of time. Do something that has the stuff working in it. Just get anything done, and then we're gonna revisit it, right? He's like, in his mind, it's like, we're not gonna win anything on version 1. And he was right about that, but possibly because he gave that direction. I mean, who knows? But I think it was right either way. And that's exactly what we do. It's like a couple months. And I did the first version, right? And that I think is a really brilliant way to start a product. It's like, look, and people even have this term in a different way. They call it MVP, minimum viable product.
Yeah.
Like just something. If this thing is supposed to be a taxi service, your Uber, it's like, just get something that hails the taxi, right? And I think that's totally reasonable. I don't like the fact that now, because of the investment culture, rather than at RAD, which means we just have a few beta customers who then try that thing out, and we're expecting to do major upgrades to it. In the internet world, it's like, and then we're going to IPO, right? It's like, we shoveled out the MVP, it performs horribly and doesn't do most of the things we wanted, but we're just trying to get to our public offering as fast as possible, so we're not going to fix any of it, right? So there, I would probably part ways with him at that part, but I appreciate the MVP part of things. Because I'm like, yes, that's a pretty good idea, because if you don't have experience with this thing, you don't really know what the boundaries are of what you're doing. So doing internally, I would prefer it to be kind of thought of as a prototype perhaps, but treating it as production has some benefits, which is that people have to actually do it. They can't just be like, oh, it's the prototype, so it doesn't support the back button. It's like, no, it has to support the back button because this is really going to actually go out to some users, right? But not very many. So I'm actually okay with that as long as you have some idea what you're doing. So we did that, and then from there, it was more about, let's look at what is not working, and let's figure out how to do that part better, right? So typically what was happening during this time period is I'd look at things, and I'd try to go, okay, how can we do something better here? And at first, I tried to do that in the object-oriented way, right? I talked about the switch, and it never got any better. All I was doing was moving things around inside objects, and it never got better. And then finally, we kind of took that step to move past that, and it got dramatically better. So there was a little bit of time after that first initial run of just here's the first thing we thought of trying to make an object-oriented one that worked. And it was just me sitting down and experimenting. There wasn't a Scrum board or anything like that. It was just me going like, what could I do here? And it just didn't work out. So there's a certain amount of experimentation and it doesn't work. then once we sort of went like, okay, we have to move past that, then the process changed a little bit because we started to have traction, see like, oh, this looks like it's going to kind of work. Once you see the thing that's going to kind of work, I started to build up an idea of how do I replicate that thing across the product, and it became more of a direct march towards finishing. It was like, okay, that's how this should be done. How do I then have to go do that for the bone system? I have to do that for the texture system. I have to do that for this. I would just march through them one after the other doing them, right? And so that process was really more of a experimenting to find out how we were going to fix our core problem, which turned out to just be, oop, sucks. But saying it sucks is one thing. How do we deliver the non-OOP version that's actually good? Because I mean, everyone's used crappy non-OOP code, so just because you're not using OOP doesn't mean the code's any good. Once we had that paradigm, and there were a bunch of things that was only experimentation we're really going to reveal, then how do we replicate it? And then it's just a march, replicate it to every part of the product, and then that's what we shipped.